is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Every half term of school, there'd be a week off. So they would theme that week on a certain element. So, for example, it was called Hoops Habits. It was all skill development.
William Twigg is currently the head coach for the London Lions Academy. He has also coached for the Essex Rebels in the Women's British Basketball League, the NewVic Knights at the college level in the UK, and the Oaklands Wolves, an English sports club. Twigg was a Cavs Academy coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers during the summer of 2018. In addition, he has coached at Snow Valley Basketball Camp in Iowa for the past 7 summers, beginning in 2018. Twigg's ultimate career goal is to coach at the highest level of the game in the NBA. Hey, Hoopheads, Dr. Dish Basketball's back-to-school sale is here. From now until August 30th, you can get $3,000 off the industry's leading shooting machine, the Dr. Dish CT Plus. In addition, the first 200 customers will also receive a free Dr. Dish IC3 shot trainer to use at the school or keep for themselves. Shop now at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Dr. Bob Grzanek from the Energetic Sports Lab, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Please take some notes as you enjoy this episode with William Twigg, head coach for the London Lions Academy. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel this morning, but I am pleased to be joined by William Twigg, head coach at the London Lions Academy. William, welcome to the Hoopheads pod.
Hey, Mike. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thrilled to have you on. William and I got a chance to meet in person a number of years ago at Snow Valley out in Iowa. So it's good for us to be able to reunite. William, let's start by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the game of basketball when you were younger and what made you fall in love with it.
Sure, yeah. So this basketball crazy journey started when I was about 8 years old. Me, my dad, and my brother, and my family, my sister and brother, we used to go to this holiday park. And there was this outdoor basketball court. My brother brought back a Sprite USA basketball from Florida. And we used to play basketball in this outdoor park. And that is where the love of the game started. And then from there, it's been a whirlwind of a journey. But yeah, that's the quick version.
So as you get into the game, was your family as into it as you were?
So funny enough, no. So basketball's a very small sport here in the UK, and it's got bigger over the last 29, 30 years. It's got a lot bigger. No, my dad played a little bit at high school from the area he's from, and that was it. But no real big background. We tried football, or as you guys call it, soccer, out there. Once upon a time, I realized I had 2 left feet. And I couldn't kick a ball straight, so then picked up a basketball, and that was it. It was story over.
It always seems to me, I always used to say, because I played almost zero soccer, and it's funny because the community where I grew up and where I still live today is a big soccer/football community. And at the time when I was younger, it wasn't nearly to the same level that it is today, but I never was a soccer player, and I always kind of joke with people. I'm like, yeah, in order for it to be a real sport, you have to use your hands. And so it never seemed like, I'm like, soccer, I can't get over the fact that I can't use my hands. And it's probably an outdated way of thinking, and people in my community probably won't be happy, but it's okay. I completely relate. My point is, I completely relate to your upbringing in basketball and why you chose basketball over soccer. I think it was a very, very good choice. So as you get into the game more, what about the game did you like? And as a player, were you already thinking about coaching at some point, or was it something that you didn't really think about until later on in your life? So just again, when were you thinking about coaching, and what was your playing experience like?
Sure, yeah. So I played for my local club, Redmond Fire, from the age of 7, 8. My mum and dad found just the local club near me, and that was it. And then by the time I used to love that. I used to absolutely love that. It was like 2 sessions a week, all community based, loads of young coaches, and they'd help out. And I still have very good memories of a lot of them coaches and the inspiration they gave me to be where I am today. And from the age of 11, I got invited by the club, the owners of the club, do I want to start helping out their under-8 session? And the moment, it was a no-brainer for me to do that. To be in a position where I could do the things. I had lots of role models at that age because they were very good at putting young figureheads as role models, and inspiring like the next generation was great. Of young people, and that really took off for me, and that's where actually the coaching journey started. And then from a very young age, 11, obviously I've always, all my friends have said the dream of playing in the NBA, and not one of them made it, obviously.
Right.
The UK is such a very small. My goal is obviously coach in the NBA, and that's been my dream ever since. And I've got an end goal, and I think I'm going to get there one day, and I fully believe that. And yeah. So that's the. Yeah.
It's funny when I hear you talk about just getting a start by coaching younger kids when you're only 11 or 12 years old yourself, and you're getting involved, and you're talking about your experience looking up to role models. And it's one of the things that when I look back, and I'm a lot older than you, but when I look back on myself as a player and my introduction to the game, both from a playing standpoint and then I guess a little bit on the coaching side, although I guess I wasn't really thinking of myself necessarily as a coach. But when I was a kid, we used to have in my community our recreation program where the high school players would coach the younger kids, and that would be the recreation league. And so I still remember, and a lot of cases I still talk to a couple of the guys that coached me when I was, let's say, 9, 10, 11 years old. And then conversely, there's some guys that I coached when I got to high school that I still am connected with today. And I feel like that connection that was made between the younger and the older players, kind of like you were describing, where you looked up to the players that were older than you in your club, and then the players that were younger than you got an opportunity to influence them. And I really feel like that's a really, really good system for just inspiring kids to want to continue to be a part of that particular organization, whether it's like you described in the UK where it's a basketball club, or here in the United States where it's a high school basketball program. I just think it's something that is really, really good for kids on both sides of that equation. And in so many ways here in the US, we've gone away from that, where you don't see very many of young players coaching other young players. It's all become parent driven, where almost all the coaches of youth basketball are parents who are, and again, not that necessarily you as an 11-year-old were trained in the skills of being a great coach, but a lot of the parents that we have here are not always skilled in the ability to be a great coach either. And I just think that there's something missing that I feel like it sounds like was a really good experience for you. And I know it was a good experience for me in terms of just that interaction between different age groups within the same, again, in your case, club, in my case, high school program.
Without doubt. And I think when it hits home at that age of being really susceptible to actually change and different people, and you're learning and taking different environments in, I think it's a great tool. And I think it could be definitely, in the UK, it could be done more to actually create not necessarily just better coaches, but better people as well, better young
Absolutely.
people as well. And at one point in my career when I was at a college in East London, so college in the UK is obviously 16 to 18-year-olds. We have sixth form, so the end of high school, so obviously that senior level. We also call it college, which is a different institute of education. We really tried to push the players I had there to go out into East London and teach in different deprived areas, and just teach them basic leadership skills. And that really helped them progress. And I think it's such a good tool. And the fact that you've still got the memories, Mike, with your age,
Yep, exactly.
versus my age of 29. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. But yeah, it's great.
I just feel like it's beneficial on both sides. I feel like it's beneficial
For sure.
for the kids who are receiving the coaching from older kids that they look up to, and then conversely for the older ones to be able to try to teach the game and articulate it and step into those leadership skills like you talked about. It feels to me like it's something that we've missed here in the U.S. I don't think it's ever going back, unfortunately, but I do think it's something that when I look back on my own experience that I really feel like was a positive in my development as a basketball player, but also, as you said, my development as a person. And I think from a coaching standpoint, that's something that is really critical. Looking back at your time early on, when you first were getting those opportunities to work with those younger players, what about coaching did you love right away? Was there one or two things you were like, man, I really like this aspect of getting to coach, again, in that case, young kids?
Yeah, so they were the club that I was at, Brentwood Fire. They were really good. The two owners that ran it, they were really good in creating a community within the club, and they had ages from under 8 all the way through to senior men. So there was a pathway, there was a continued pathway, but there would be constant, there would just be constant contact of opportunity. And they were very smart in a business sense and tactically of creating different opportunities. So we have various holiday breaks in the UK. So every half term of school there'll be a week off. So they would theme that week on a certain element. So for example, it was called Hoops Habits. It was all skill development. There was no necessarily playing, and they were good at creating a certification through that, through in the club, not an official national certification.
Right.
But their own criteria. And that would be for half term. And then when you get to the big holiday, so say that was October half term, and you got to the big holiday, which is Christmas, then it'd be a big Christmas camp for, 4 or 5 days. And that would have a different element to it, where it's more fun and more games and competitiveness. But they would get all their young coaches to take a team, and teams were drafted and selected. And it would all be like on a scoreboard, like on a big whiteboard, and everyone would have a team name, and everyone would have a certain color shirt, and there'd be you got to design your shirt on one day and all that, and you can cut the sleeves off and do whatever. It was constant memories I'll never forget, and it's definitely implemented on me of running a successful, like a small successful club, and really hits home, and that's a massive thing, I think. They're the memories of camps like that. Then obviously in season there were teams, and would go abroad and play in Italy or Holland. And they're just memories. I've dug. My mum's been clearing out the house, and she found a load of photos. And then this would have sort of there'd be a load of photos as well. There'd be photo opportunities where you could buy photos and all that, and you keep all the memories, and like a camp tour DVD. So I had to find a DVD player recently, trying to, because obviously my MacBook doesn't have a DVD slot. So it's real. Yeah, they were very good at that, and I think that's had a big drive for me, and especially someone. I really struggled in education. I really struggled being dyslexic in primary school and high school. We just combined the middle school and the high school together, and basketball has really been an outlet, and coaching has been a bigger outlet for me, for where I can feel I can really progress in my career, and it's really helped. So yeah.
Was there a moment that you knew you wanted to be a coach? Was it a light bulb, or was it more of a gradual realization that, hey, I think this is what I want to make my profession? Or was it one moment where you were just like, man, coaching is what I want to do? I don't know if either one of those describes you better.
So if I take it back to the education side, I had a lot of experiences where it's, oh, you can't do this, or you're not able to do that. And you're not really good at that. And I've had teachers say that to me before. I remember being at 12, being told, "Oh, yeah, you'll never do that. You'll never go and be like a successful basketball coach. There's no career in that, etc." I remember a teacher telling me that. And I think realizing being in a real positive environment at a young age of trying to help 7, 8 year olds to start, and then building that up all the way through to 18. And seeing the young people in front of me enjoy the opportunity they've had in their basketball experience, I think that's been the biggest selling point for me. I'm a bit of a dreamer, and I'm a bit of a go hard or go home. And my goal is to be the best I can be, and have that performance mentality. And obviously, the highest level in the world is obviously the NBA. Second, obviously, the Olympics, I'd say, with that just being done. But yeah, I think the realizations of more two realizations, the yin and yang of it, has been really the thing that's really motivated me and get me. Yeah.
So you mentioned some teachers that sort of tried to kill your dream and tell you, hey, that's not really possible. Who were a person or two, or who was a person or two that inspired you, that you looked to, that maybe you looked up to as a mentor?
Sure, yeah. So one of them was a high school PE teacher. He had a really big basis in hockey. He used to play hockey for England's like national team. But he was just a real fan of the game to start, but actually took the time and education to devote and learn basketball to a T, and not just like the basic fundamentals or the skill element, as some might say, but actually the tactical, technical, and the X's and O's, which was quite surprising for someone that's never played the game. But he gave me a lot of outlet and a lot of opportunity during high school. One, to play again, because I went through phases of playing and coaching when I was young, and I'd always coached, but sometimes I stopped playing to coach because I just had more satisfaction and more enjoyment out of that. And at that age, being a really young, immature coach, like enjoyed the winning element as well, saying, "Oh yeah, I like this." It's a bit different now, but I think anyone that coaches the game, there's that element of obviously they want to win, and all the players, they want to win, and they burn off if you don't set kind of align your goals and your aspirations within a team, then it doesn't really work. But yeah, no, that from a young age, that was the thing. But yeah, he was a great guy. Pete Ware, he was a really great guy. And his counterpart, Gary Sapsford, he was like the head of sports, so a little bit like an AD, but he would also teach PE at the same time. Them two big figureheads I've had that look after me and took me under their wing during my high school days, and really motivated me and really pushed out the boat for me as much as they could. So yeah.
When you think about one or both of them, is there some part of your coaching today that you feel like traces back directly to their influence? Is there anything that you can point to in kind of your coaching style, your coaching personality, that you can trace back to one of those guys?
I think it's developed over the time, Mike, from where I started. Because I think coaches are very good at. I think it might have been Alex Sarama who's previous on this, and we spoke about it, and yourself have spoke about it before. It might have been someone else actually on the Hoops Heads. It's like people copycat. They kind of copycat and relate back to how they were coached as players. So I really tried to have my own individual way rather than be the kind of copycat kid, if that makes sense. But some things, they were both very different, and they were a bit of a yin yang as well. One was very not uptight, but very enthusiastic and very passionate on the sideline. Not in a negative way, I think in the right way. And then the other was more cool, calm, collective. And sometimes I try and the way I see coaching now in this day and age as a head coach, it's you're putting on two hats, but it's also like it's drama and you're acting in a sense. So like rather than get too emotional and too attached and not be able to think rationally and logically, I'd put on my Sapo hat, and if I need to pump them up a little bit and be a bit more enthusiastic or get on the refs back a little bit just to get the players remotivated, then that hat will go on. Or if I need to just more stand back and watch the environment that's in front of me and be able to challenge and make changes with a logical sense, I then put the other hat on. So if that's answers your question.
No, it does. I mean, I think, again, obviously your evolution as a coach and just how you think about the game and how you approach what you do as a coach changes over time. And it's natural as the game grows and you grow and you get exposed to more things and you start to look and you figure out what works for you and what maybe doesn't work as well for you that works for somebody else. And clearly all the time when you have innovative minds, and you obviously mentioned Alex, who's somebody that is on the cutting edge of a lot of new things in coaching, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Yeah, I think you tend to grow and change from where you were at the beginning of your career. And so tell me a little bit about the first, I don't want to say real coaching opportunity, but your first true employment as a coach, as opposed to just working within the club while you're still playing.
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually started making money from the age of 12, which was great. So I volunteered for a year, and then they were paying me like 20, I think it's like 15 or 20 pounds an hour, which was incredible.
Exactly.
And then, I was smart. I was able to save my money, and mum and dad directed me in that sense, and made some good investments. And I was fortunate to get an opportunity to go to Cleveland to volunteer. So I spent a lot of money on that, and my nan gave me some money to do that, which was great. Just a shout out to that experience and that opportunity. But my first real paid full-time job was at the college I mentioned earlier, was NewVic Sixth Form College. And funny enough, my now wife, she found me that opportunity because I was in an opportunity where it's prior to that was about £10,000 for the season, so like a stipend, but paid over 10 months, and it was quite a quite wealthy area, and that was tough. About 500, so it was about £1,000 a month, and the salary for that, and it was about £500 on bills and the rent, and then the rest was like the food and the shopping and all that. but yeah, as if you're passionate about this, you never know. You don't really do it for the money, as a lot of people do. Yeah, that NewVic was great, and that gave me a real opportunity to flourish as a young head coach, with everything on my own back, the whole performance program, all the individuals, S&C, film, stats, the lot, the organization, the team managing. And that's what it's like in the UK. You'll find that there are a lot of coaches that will have to go or try and do all of that. If they can manage it, they'll do it, or certain things will drop off. But that's a really big thing. But yeah, that was the first full employment role I had.
Do you have a favorite aspect of, you talked about right there, just doing kind of everything as a head coach? If you could keep some things on your plate and maybe take some things off your plate, what are the things that you absolutely love that are, hey, no matter what position I'm in, I want to make sure that I get to do these things? Like there's some coaches that are analytics, some guys love player development, some coaches love the X's and O's, some love the culture and the relationships they build with players. What are sort of your non-negotiables of things that would have to be a part of anything that you do as a basketball coach?
Sure. I think as a head coach in any environment, you have to get to know film really well. And that's something I've enjoyed more and more, watching film. And I've been doing a lot more, actually, watching myself coach a lot more. I will now always film myself coaching, and I'll put a tripod in the area and I can watch all certain things. In another environment I was in, another working, we used GoPros, which was great. And that way I would be able to see players' reactions to how the session goes and etc. And that was really good. I learned a lot from that. But definitely the film element is something I think you've always got to be if you want to be in the professional industry. But then also just as an enjoyment, it is film, that's for sure. The other element to it is the in that environment, trying to get making the players, the students, the kids realize that they're 16 to 18. They're trying to earn their education to go to university. All 23 players, there was probably about 4 of them that had their heads screwed on right. The rest all thought they were going to go to the NBA or EuroLeague, and that's
of course, of course.
Or the BBL in our case, or whatever the new name of it is now, Basketball Super League, and that journey of educating and creating a performance environment to some young people that have probably never been in a performance environment or will never get the opportunity further going on to be in a performance environment. That is a real big take on it. So just the having the team meetings and giving them I'd have 4, I'd pick, or the team would pick 4 players, and they'd be like the leadership group of the team. And they would bring to me any issues, any problems, as a more of a team collective. They all I had an open door office, so all 23 players could knock on my door in my office, and if they needed anything or education's going wrong or the teacher said this or the teacher said that, I'd always get both sides before making decisions. And and sometimes I'd take the kids. I'd be brave about it, but I'd take the kids back over some of the teachers. I'm not saying that's always the right way to do it, but obviously having them difficult conversations. And I was a guy that the thing that I missed is being in an institute of education, and we were big on Gmail. They love Gmail. They just implemented Gmail and the Google Drive and all that. And that was great. But I would always follow up an email I would always have the conversation first, face to face. I'd never just rely on emails. Right. Be someone behind just lock myself in my office, being a keyboard warrior. I hated that. I would always make sure just the day-to-day conversations with all the different departments in education and facilities and the heads. And that was a big thing I loved. And I think that's important, that element as well.
Yeah, that face-to-face contact, and I think having conversations with players, and then as you said, just being part of a larger community, there is something to be said for that. I know there's a lot of coaches at all levels of the game that really do enjoy that aspect of sort of having their program be part of a bigger entity, whether that be, again, a high school level, college level, whatever it might be. And then you're just getting to know people outside of the team, outside of basketball. And there's a lot of things that can be a positive from that. Over the past 2 AAU seasons, both my son's team and my daughter's team have used Game Changer. It's simply the best basketball team app. We used it to live stream games for parents and grandparents that weren't able to make the games in person. We used it for coaching video. We used it to track both team and individual statistics. And it's so incredibly easy to use, you'll be blown away. Download Game Changer now and start using it with your team. You talked a little bit about film, and I've talked to several coaches that have filmed themselves, and it's always interesting when you watch yourself coach and you pick up little things. And I know it's funny that when I've filmed myself, and my own kids always tell me, Dad, whenever something goes wrong, you always put your hands on your head. And it's something that I don't really notice, obviously, in the moment. And then you watch it on film, you're like, oh my gosh, I do it almost every single time something goes wrong. I'm like, I got to fix that. And so was there anything that jumped out at you when you were watching yourself over the years? Is there anything that you've picked up on that you're like, hey, I've got to eliminate that, or hey, that looks really good, I got to do more of?
For sure. It differs. So in a game, when I was a lot younger and I was coaching, so club, so National League, the biggest thing is, and you see it quite common in a lot of coaches, is commentating. They're actually commentating what's happening on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that was one thing that I started. I think it's just that natural process of you go through. And that was one thing that I saw to start. But then on the other sense, something I do pick up, and I still do it now, and I think it's a good thing, is a coach's clap. It's when if you're running the triggers or gets or actions or motion or sets or whatever you're running in your offense or your defense, etc. And the outcome might not be a basket, but there's positive reinforcement for what's happening, and it's that coach's clap. And then, hey, great job, and etc. That's something I've picked up that I've tried to keep. And someone actually brought that to me and said, "Oh, great coach's clap." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, "What is that?" But then, yeah. And then I look back at film, and I look back at about I looked at film about 10 years ago. I had some really, really old film. And seeing like I was doing that then, that was quite cool to watch. But they're two little qualities that I've seen, definitely. Yeah.
Who or what do you watch beyond your own team? In other words, where are you going to watch things that you can take, borrow, incorporate, steal, whatever word you want to use? Who are you watching that's doing interesting things that you try to pick up when you're watching film?
Sure. So in the past, I think it's definitely Snow Valley's been a big help. Being there for 6-7 years as a volunteer, and being able to have that big grasp of network, that's really helped. And obviously, watching people's social medias off the back of that has been a big help. So someone like a Joel Lincoln from Game Shots,
Yep.
who I know you've spoke to before. We're really close and we stay in contact, and like seeing different outlets like that on social media for sure. Definitely Olympics and FIBA World Cup. That's a big one. And even past games. I remember at university, me and my friend, we both worked at the same club at university, and we were like dorm buddies. We were across dorms from each other. We'd rewatch old Olympic games from 2012 and '08 Beijing, and we'd watch. We might have a beer in our hand watching it, but we'd still make notes at the same time. But we'd find different corny ways to watch film like that, and just so it doesn't get too repetitive and too boring in a sense, and we'd have great conversations off the back of that. Shout out, to Kieran for that, Matthews. But yeah, it's definitely progressed more, Mike. From someone very committed and dedicated to basketball, I didn't spend a lot of time watching film at a young age. And I'd say over the 10 years, it's definitely grown increasingly more and more and more and more now. Probably a bit unhealthy right now, the amount I watch. But, that's what my wife tells me. But definitely for sure, it's a mixture. It's got to be a mixture, different from coaching clinics off YouTube, as we said, like Olympics, World Cup, NBA at times, listening to podcasts, like obviously the JJ LeBron one, that was quite interesting to listen to. Can't remember the name of it, top of my head, but different, obviously yourselves, but different. I try and pull as much as I can from different areas to watch.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about how you came to embrace the constraints-led approach, and then how you're using it today in your coaching, and what coaches out there who maybe haven't heard of it or aren't using some of the concepts yet, how they could kind of incorporate that into what they do as a coach.
Sure. So the first interaction I had with the constraints-led approach was when I went back to university. So I went back to university 2 years ago to finish my bachelor's degree, because obviously my goal is obviously professional, and I believe you have to have a high-level education in that sense, in that area. But definitely that was where I started to learn about teaching pedagogies, and obviously of linear and non-linear, and that one being constraints-led approach, CLA, and one being traditional. And that's where I first learned about the CLA, and that is where I opened, like, going back into university and the lecturer going on with it. And I was like, well, what in the world is this? Like, and it's just absolute. It's like, this guy, he's just an educator. He doesn't know. He's got no coaching experience. He ain't got a Scooby. That was my logical thought at the time.
Yeah.
Sit as a 27-year-old sitting with a bunch of 21-year-olds trying to finish their bachelor's degree, and they all kind of like, it's a bit of a drop off at that age for them. But anyway, and I've got real life experience at that time, and then the bigger experiences, having an opportunity with London Lions. They had a coaches program, and Don Showalter and Alex Sarama was involved with some individual like coaching development sessions. And I've known Alex before that. We've connected prior to that before, but we've got to know each other over the time, and that's where I start to learn about further how you apply the constraints-led approach to basketball. And then obviously very soon off the back of that, transforming basketball was started. And that's the big of it. And I think the easiest way I've determined how to explain the constraint-led approach is 3-on-3 cutthroat. So anyone that's interested in it, imagine creating separate and different rules to constrain a small-sided game, and how that would then create real opportunity to develop then skill acquisition. And I would start, like in the past, I've said, it's a bit like cutthroat in a sense.
I couldn't agree more with cutthroat being a great example of, just from a simplicity standpoint, of helping someone to understand what the constraints-led approach looks like. Anyone who's ever been to Snow Valley and been involved and seen cutthroat there firsthand, you get a pretty good idea of, again, what it can do. And obviously there's a lot more things that you can add to it in terms of the constraints, and
For sure.
can make the game fit what it is that you're trying to teach in terms of a given concept or something that fits specifically to your team. And it's, when you really look at it, it seems like a no-brainer in terms of a player's development, in terms of developing your team when you're trying to work on, again, whether it's a particular action or you're trying to reinforce a particular behavior on the floor. It feels like that's a really, really simple way to be able to get yourself into the constraints-led approach. And then obviously you can get into it more when you start talking about individual player development and doing it with two players and one-on-one. And there's just a variety of different ways that you can have players who even have different abilities, but by adding in constraints, you can allow those two players to still be able to interact and improve and get better within the confines of what they're doing, despite the fact that their skill level isn't exactly the same, which we know that it's rare that you have two players that have the exact same skill set. So to be able to put those constraints in place to be able to help players improve, I think is something that just makes a ton of sense. Tell me a little bit about what your day-to-day is like with the London Lions. What's your role, what you do on a daily basis there?
Sure. So this part, I'll go through this past season, which I think is a good one to go. So we had we started off with 4 coaches, academy coaches, and we had 3 managers. 2 of them were the GMs of the women's team who won the Euro Cup final this year, which was an incredible achievement. And then our other manager was Alex, and we created a whole program through Alex with all non-linear pedagogy with the CLA, and we developed these young players that came from all various areas of the UK. We had players from Bristol. We had a couple, 1 or 2 players from Bristol. We had players from Midlands. We had obviously from London as well, Essex. So we were quite spread out, and some internationals as well. And we would create a program over the season where they would. Everything we done was untraditional, and it was an incredible different environment. And we made sure we could action different, for example, principles of play involved, and we had terminology. And the beauty of it, every kid was under the same principles of play. Every kid had the same terminology. And all the coaches were able to, all 4 of us, all 5, including Alex as well, we would all go to different sessions, and we would coach each session. And we would have a big Google Drive of everyone's session plan, and there was about 150 session plans at each age group. And what we would do, we would obviously reflect back on the previous session of what they're doing. We would discuss each age group's rate limiters, and we would create player development plans for our age group, an agenda we had. But then we'd also, obviously, that, as I said, touch base with each of the groups, and so they would always constantly get a different coach with different small-sided games, but all with the same the desired outcome that we were each trying to teach based on their rate limiters as a team. And that was incredible. To be in an environment like that, majority clubs I've been involved in, or schools, it's all either you do it on your back and it's all on your own and it's what you know, or it's we're going to try and implement this and then no one really enforces it, and then everyone starts to do their own thing. And the difference I personally saw with the camaraderie we all had together, and we'd meet once a week. That and all going off the understanding of the same basis, but we all had a personal twist on it a little bit as well. That was really powerful, and that was probably the thing I thought I wasn't going to enjoy the most. Is that continuity, working with 4 or 5 other coaches and being able to bounce ideas off each other, and that was incredible. And from our understanding, from what we were told from superiors, like it's just who have been around various areas of basketball in Europe and the US, it just doesn't exist. Not many club programs do that, even at the senior level. But yeah, it was incredible, Mike. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, to be able to collaborate. And I know, like, one of the things that I've talked to a couple guys from IMG Academy here in the US, and they told a similar story of it's just the ability to walk down the hallway or go to someone else's practice or just talk with someone else who's in a similar situation and be able to collaborate and bounce ideas off of people as you described. I mean, I think that that's a powerful thing, because too often I think coaching is like this. I think teaching is like this, that everybody kind of gets in your own little room and you're doing your own little thing and you get trapped in your own little problems.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Sometimes when you can step outside of that and just present what's going on to somebody else outside who's not as deeply involved in the situation, then they can see and bring some clarity to it. And before you know it, everybody's improving, getting better, and bouncing those ideas. It just seems like it's something that in all levels of working with, in this case, players, but students, whoever, it just feels like that's something that we could all, in lots of different walks of life, do better in terms of collaboration. Because like you said, too often you kind of have everything on your own back and you're just trying to do it all, instead of, hey, there may be somebody that, you know, sits right down the hall from you that has the answer that you're beating your head against the wall trying to figure out. And so to be able to have that to utilize, I think is tremendously powerful. I want to ask you one final question, William, about just your goal to coach in the NBA. So when you think about that as your long-term goal, what are 1 or 2 of your next steps, or what are some things, some actions that you're trying to take to make that dream come true?
Sure, yeah. So obviously, being a native to America, it's not an easy thing to do. It's definitely been a journey these past 18 years, and obviously I've been a bit of a yes man, and I try not to turn down opportunities I see value in, and an opportunities where I can network as well at the same time. But obviously, part of it is that, and really trying to branch out and network as much as possible. And I'm continuing that journey. Very fortunate to have my spouse, my wife. She works for an American company, so hopefully we might be heading out to the States sometime soon. I'm trying to figure the logistics of that, but that's my next step, to get into the country where I can be the number one legally, and then which is the most important thing.
For sure.
And then right, and then obviously go from there. I mean, having an opportunity, I had a taste with it with the Cavs. I know you and Jason are Cleveland guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously having a 3-4 month voluntary opportunity with the Cavs back in 2018, that really sold the, okay, if I can figure out a way to volunteer and get involved with the Cavs and create a network there, back in 2018, there's from then it was like, there's no stopping me. There's got to be a way I can do it, and there's got to be opportunity. And that's been the biggest selling point. And I think I've got some exciting stuff coming soon. Hopefully with all this move going ahead. But yeah, no, it's really, yeah, it's a grind. But it's not worth doing. Nothing worth doing is easy, right? And it's
True.
not, and that's my thing.
Got it. Very true. Good stuff. All right, before we get out, I want to give you a chance to share. How can people connect with you, find out more about what you're doing? So if you want to share email, social media, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then after you do that, I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Great, thanks, Mike. So my social media is, if you go Sorry, you thrown me off completely there. Let's start with Gmail. My Gmail is coachtwig95 at gmail.com. My Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, all is under a link tree, which is coach_twig. Each of them social medias have a link to my link tree where you can access all of my information and all my content as well.
Perfect. William, cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule this afternoon to jump on with us. Really appreciate it. And everyone out there, thanks for listening. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.